Get ready for real and raw discussions as we dive into
navigating mixed-race relationships and motherhood,
to the intersections of our lives,
money, and so much more.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. We're back with another good one.
Yeah, another good one. What do we want to get into today?
So I want to talk about friendships, right? Just like the different layers of friendships, because I think we don't talk about friendships in all of its different, I don't know, there's like different definitions. There's different relationships between friends for different reasons at different times. There are friends that come in your life that you actually go through, breakups with. And I don't think that we talk about that, what that grieving process of that looks like, or even just like what the process of that looks like. Yeah. I think, a lot of people, I was having a conversation recently. I've made a newer group of friends who are all into wellness and so on. And I don't know them super well. So I was having a conversation with two of them the other day, and they were saying they don't know each other super well, right? But we've all kind of become connected through the common desire for friendship and friends who are kind of, aligned with your way of thinking. And these women are all on sort of, like a self-love, self-care, healing, wellness journey. And they're all entrepreneurs. And so, there's a lot of alignment. And they were talking about how, well, one woman in particular was talking about how recently she's realized that she's losing a lot of friendships, and not because of something intentional, but because she's just not feeling connected to people. And I think that that's a really real thing. So, coming off of summer where I think a lot of times people do tend to connect back with friends, and a lot of times people are visiting, wherever they're from originally or whatever, they're, in their hometowns or whatever. Yeah. I think it's a like a relevant thing. Yeah. That dynamic.
Yeah, I feel like it sounds like what she's expressing is just this like outgrowing of some friendships, or what I have seen throughout life is just like you go in and out with people, like you're really like attached at the hip, and then you like grow apart for a bit, and then you come back together, and you grow apart and you come back together. And those people, I find like it's usually like physical time, and as soon as I've had that, like we just drop right back into being connected. Versus other people, it's an actual growing apart, like you're just growing in different directions, and it doesn't fit anymore. Like you are a completely different person than someone else.
Yeah.
Or than you were before.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of the reason that friendships do grow in different directions, is because either both of you are growing differently, or one of you is staying the same and the other one is growing. But if you're both kind of staying the same, there's usually not that much reason for the friendship to dissolve or change, other than maybe physical proximity, or if someone just really stops making an effort. But yeah, like I think that there's a natural evolution that happens, especially for women, as we get older and enter different phases and make different choices. Even, there's this thing with mom friends, right? If you're a parent, a mom, it's very difficult to only have friends who are not moms, right? And then it's hard to find friends who are moms too, who you feel aligned with, whose kids your kid plays with, and like all of that. So there's just so many different iterations of friendship, I think, that are needed for somebody. But they also like occupy different spaces and positions in your world and in your life. But then there are some people who don't have friends and close friendships. And I wonder what that's like. What is your like friendship situation?
My friendship situation.
I don't know. Like, how do you ask that question?
What is? Do you have friends?
No, I don't have any friends.
I mean, dude, some people don't have friends, and I don't think it's necessarily that it makes them a loser. I think it's just like some people really have a hard time with trust and connection. And I have clients who don't have female friends.
Right? I can tell you, like my husband and I talk about this a lot, and his perspective is like he needs to feel like he wants to invest time in a relationship before he actually builds that relationship. And I was just saying the other day, I'm like, well, you can't really do that. Like, you have to go on dates.
Yeah, you have to date your friends.
Dating until you figure out whether or not it's a relationship worth investing into. And until you get to that point, there has to be like some degree of investment.
Yeah.
And what's curious to me is like often one person wants to invest more than another person. And it's similar to dating in a lot of ways. It's like you meet someone and you're like, oh, I'm so in love with her. Like, she's so cool. And then the other one is like, yeah, she's cool, but we good.
Or it's not the right time. Like, I don't have that much time to spend with you. Or, you know, I have kids who are, you know, got soccer every weekend and you don't have no kids. So, like, we can't, you know, like, because I think those factors also
play a role.
Yeah, affect it as well.
Absolutely. And even at different stages of your children, right? Like, I met a bunch of moms recently that are like older. They're not age older. They have older kids.
Okay, yeah.
So they can't relate to having young kids.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
That's
And I will tell you this, a lot of moms or parents with older kids do not want to be friends or hang around younger kids. And it's almost like okay, I'm out of that phase. I don't want to be around it. And it's not, you know, it's not, but it's difficult because then you don't get to connect with those people. Right. But like, that is a lot of people's perspective.
Yeah. And I can understand that perspective. And on the flip side, there isn't, like, their kid is not going to want to hang out with your child.
Right.
Like,
that too.
Your does not want to be around your 6-year-old.
Probably not, no.
So it also becomes harder in that context to like, oh, let's just get the kids together and we'll hang out. And that it becomes less easy when your kids are not going to relate.
Also going to connect. Yeah.
And I think the like, let's hang out while our kids hang out is a stage that is definitely going to be outgrown, right? Like, I find unless they like become friends and they want to stay friends, I think that by the time they become teenagers, and maybe you can tell me with your oldest, like by the time they become teenagers, they're like, no, I have my own friends. Like, I'm not trying to hang out with whoever your mom friend's kid is, right? Like,
partly that, and partly, yeah, they're doing their own thing. I mean, when I was growing up, even as a teenager, we would have to go to our parents' friend's house, but the kids there was always a group of kids that was around the same age. So even when we were teenagers, we would still find it fun to hang out because we would just do teenage things. And now there's a group of us and we would do more teenage stuff. There was, you know what I mean? So it was never a problem, you know, with Asaya because he has a sister who's so much younger than him. He'll do a lot of things with us, but I also do, because of that, allow him to have his own space and time so that he doesn't always feel like he's doing stuff for his sister because he's got to do a lot more for and with her than she is ever going to do with him because it's not appropriate. Right? So, you know, yeah, but I think, you know, kids, the way they hang out is different now too. So, and I think parents are just becoming more like, I want my own time and I don't necessarily want to bring you along to everything. So if you could go do your own thing, then I could go, you know, hang out with friends and like do, you know, I think women are becoming more mindful of that too. Well, at least the women I spend my time with.
No, yeah, definitely. I think there is some of that, like, let's just do our own thing and we don't always need to get the kids together. The downside of it, though, I feel like my child this summer really didn't get a lot of play dates because I was being like, well, I'm going to do my friend thing and I'm filling my cup when it's convenient for me. And I don't really want to hang out with your friends' moms, right? And like some of them are really cool. I just don't have the bandwidth to like want more of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm an extrovert, introvert. Like, I flip-flop a lot. And I went through a whole 4 months where I was like, I'm not having it. Like, I'm good. I'm not trying to have her. And especially like some of his friends have cool moms and I'd be happy to hang out with them. Others of his friends, it's like pulling teeth to like have a conversation with these people. And I'm like, why I gotta be the one? Like, I don't want to always be the one that has to like make friends or make these like frivolous conversations with people that I don't really care investing time or energy into.
Yeah, so just don't.
And I won't. And partly so the flip side of that is he's not quite at the age where most parents will trust like dropping their kid off, versus I am like happy to have someone's kid over without needing to entertain.
Yeah, and different. So that's another thing too, right? Like different people have different standards for what's acceptable friendship wise even. And I wonder if, you know, here I find there's a lot of people who have big families. So they maybe, you know, they rely on family a lot instead of friend groups. And so friendships are secondary to family. Whereas for me, being an only child, my friendships were primary. So for me, having friends was having family. You know what I mean? My friends are my family. And so, yeah, like I think so much of the structure and the dynamic that you form, or the definition or role you allow friendships to play in your life also has a lot to do with how you grew up and what your parents allowed or did not allow. Like for me, my parents allowed friendships for sure. And I think they had to, because I was the only child. So they were like, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? So I did sleepovers, people slept over. I had a lot of freedom when it came to friendships. And so that stayed with me as being very important. You know what I mean? And I've like always prioritized friendship, and I've always, you know, made sure that friendships for me were not fleeting, like surface level things. It wasn't just about, you know, having the good time or the right now. Like they were, you know, they've been meaningful friendships. Like I'm willing to invest in my friendships, you know what I mean? But for some people, they don't treat friendships the same. Like I remember being in Brooklyn and, you know, in my 20s and knowing these people who just like knew everybody, right? Like these people. And I would always be like, yo, that's dope. They know everybody, right? And they're so well connected. And then it started to dawn on me, like they know everybody. They don't have no deep connection with any of these people. So yeah, it's great. Like networking and having a network is one thing, but having friendships and having that trust and having that connection and transparency and history in a lot of, you know, a lot of times, that's the thing. I think that that's the important thing, at least for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard another friend describe it as like concentric circles. Like she has her like inner circle, and like she defined it as people I could travel with. And then there is the next circle, which is like people that I hang out with. And then the next circle is like people I know that I maybe don't want to invest any time or energy into. So I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point. And I think for me, being new here, cultivating like a whole new group of friends, especially as a mom now, and like being older, being in my 20s in the Bay Area was a whole different story, right? Like I had so many friends, like all the time, friends. And that has shifted now to where it's not as, it's still important to me. I agree with you. I like always prioritize friendships. And yet there is this gap of like, how do you actually cultivate that in a new place where people are not as like, if they grew up here or if they have a lot of family here, they're not trying to hang out with friends. Like,
no, I do realize that
lives are full.
You're looking for people who are also transplants, who also have a similar like family profile. Like you kind of have to like, yo, it's like they should make a dating app.
I think there are dating apps for friends.
Not for friends, for like
mom
for parent like friends, like friends. So people with kids who could become friends with other people with kids who like and share a profile. Dude, I might be onto something.
Y'all don't steal our idea. This might be the.
You heard it here first. We're about to copyright this shit. But no, for real, like it's difficult because you have to start from somewhere. It has to be built, right? And so how do you form trust? How do you form connection? I find these days, though, I can discern, I think, much more quickly if somebody is somebody that I would like to invest that time with. Or, I think it takes less, especially I think if you know yourself too, if you have a good sense of self and you have had good friendships, you also kind of know what you're looking for. When I first moved here, I had met, quite a few different ladies. Some of those people have fallen off. Why? Because I don't do one-sided friendships. You know what I mean? I connect, I invite you, I make the plan, I put it out there, and you maybe accept, but you don't reciprocate in that energy of the exchange, right? Mm-hmm. To me, it's like a relationship for sure. It's like partnership, right? Dude, if you're slacking over here, like I'm going to say something or I'm not invested enough in those relationships to say something. Mm-hmm. I will maybe try one last time and observe what happens. Yeah. And if not, then I'm like, well, I'm not really invested here. So I will just ghost my friend. Yeah. But it's kind of like, but you ghosted me. You know what I mean? Right. So
do you ever find that you, like, if, let's say you went a long time without talking to them, seeing them, whatever, someone that you had initially said like, yeah, I could be friends with this person, and then months go by, and then all of a sudden they're inviting you to something, would you still go?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no bad blood by any means, but the effort, the energy that I, assign to it is going to change, right? So I will always put a lot of energy into something that I feel is worth it until I make a new decision. That has nothing to do with changing my mind about the thing. It's just I've made a new decision about how I'm going to show up around it. You know what I mean? But yeah, for sure. If there's no bad blood. There's no judgment really around it. It's just like, okay, that's not where I'm going to put the effort. I'm going to, use that energy and apply it somewhere else. And I think that also allows you to not really get caught up in the drama of it, because there really doesn't have to be any, right? And what I say to my couples all the time, dude, most of the time it's not about you. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not about you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's tough because I think, like, we were having this conversation over dinner a couple of weeks ago, and this one friend said, oh, like someone is actually like wooing her in a way of like just making so much effort, right? And she's not reciprocating it. She's like, yeah, you're cool, but I'm not like going out of my way to like constantly hang out with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's like, hey, you want to go for a walk? Hey, you want to go do this? Hey, you want to go do that? Hey, you want to go do that? And she's like, I have to appreciate it because there's very few people doing that these days, right? So she's like, she's coming around to like making an effort because she's like, oh, she always shows up. She always is like trying to hang out and get together. So she like has been hanging out with this person more. And that's an interesting, like, wooing, like, it's interesting because I feel like there's also the place of like, damn, you just feel desperate, like, take it down a notch.
All right, well, let's yes, or I'm just like really friendly, or I'm just really
interested in hanging out with you.
Or I just have a lot of time on my hands and nothing to fill it with, which is, something.
No, but this person, I feel like she has 2 or 3 kids. Like, she's busy. She's not nothing.
Yeah,
she's
well,
out of her way to make time.
So what makes somebody want to make time for a friend, right? Like, what are the things that people are looking for in a friendship that makes them, well, like, what are you looking for? What makes you feel like, okay, I'm willing to put some time into this person? Like, okay, so what makes you say, okay, I should go hang out with them or grab a drink or not, because there are people we meet that we say, oh, we should meet up, we should hang out, we should do this, and then you don't ever. And then there are people with whom you say that and you actually follow through. So what's the difference?
Well, one is I won't say it unless I actually mean it.
Okay.
So I don't ever, people will say it like, oh yeah, we should hang out. And I'm like, uh-huh. That's a no.
Uh-huh.
Right? Like intuitively, I know that if I didn't say, hell yeah, that sounds amazing, then it's a no. So I know energetically, I know myself, and I don't know what it is. Like, I feel like I go a lot off of intuition. Like, I just know, even like we can go back to when we met and I was like, who's this lady? We're going to be friends. Right? Like, I was just there with I'm going to find something to talk to you about, because already off the bat, I was like, she's cool. I like her energy, and then we'll see. But
so I think that says a lot about you, though, right? You knowing yourself and you just being, like, again, self-aware and having a sense of what you're looking for. So what happens if you're not a woman who knows that? You know what I mean? Like, how do, because
I feel like all of us know that to a certain extent. Like, maybe it's not self-aware to the extent of intuitive, or it's your intuition guiding you, but it's maybe self-aware to the point of like, I'm really into bowling, so my friend's gotta be into bowling, right?
okay, yeah, I guess
I
so.
have to, like, go and do all the things that I'm into so I can meet people that are also into that thing.
Okay.
Even if it's just drinking, right? Even
Well,
if
I
it's
think
just like, I want to
that's the
get
thing, I
crunk
think-
every week.
A lot of times people's friendships are formed on more superficial things like drinking, or we both happen to have a lot of free time and we're both single, so we just go out and you're my going out friend, right?
Right.
And I think it's important and not something that people necessarily do to discern the difference in the depth and the quality of those relationships, you know what I mean? Because that type of friendship is cool, but it's not the same as a friendship where somebody's got your back and someone, you know, is showing up for you when you really need them, and someone has a understanding of who you are, can help, you know, guide you away from, you know, bad decisions, or show you a different perspective, or show you a part of yourself that maybe, because I think the role of good friends is not that different than the role of a partner in some
Capacities,
If you let
right?
them. If you let them. I feel like I feel like I have made friends here in this new place, but I don't feel like they're as influential in life decisions or like life path as of yet, right? And it's not like no shade at all. I think it's A, something that comes with time. B, it depends on your stage of life, right? So
for sure.
when I was in my 20s, that was a whole different stage of life where I did need a lot of direction, and my friends were influencing that direction very deeply. Versus now, I'm more established in who I am, what I'm doing, what I'm here for, what my purpose is, and I'm sticking to it. It's not going to be swayed that much by a friend. Probably not even a partner, right? Like, I am just this person and it's not up for debate. And that's not to say that you're not going to grow, still continuing to grow. But those, I don't know if it's as moldable as it used to be in my 20s.
Yeah, I think some of it is age, but I think of it's like also I see it as what you're going through or have gone through. And when there's not or no longer is a parallel or a connection or an ability to understand, I think that can damage friendships too, right? Like, I'll use the example of having gone through a divorce, for example. For not to say that there's a direct impact on my friendships, but I could see who showed up for me in what way, who understood the impact of it versus who didn't, who was worried about it from like sort of a superficial level, like was kind of like looking at it from a personal aspect versus like really understanding this is happening to somebody else. You know, like it's just interesting to observe how people move with you through certain life experiences, or who you connect with because you've been through certain life experiences, right? Like it doesn't even have to be people who are around you at that time. But, you know, I think there's also a lot of people who experience loss of close friendships. And I'm talking about deep close friendships, not, you know, not these fleeting kind of superficial friendships. But what do you think that is about?
Shit. Sometimes I don't know. Because I have a group of friends that I had in the Bay Area. Some of them are like very, very, very deep relationships. And since we've moved, I haven't received a call, a text. I'm like, this is a 10-year friendship.
Wow.
15 years invested in this friendship. And like not even a, hey, how's it going out in Texas?
So what do you think that's about?
I don't know. To me, I'm like, well, I guess that friendship is over. Like, it's just not like the time has passed.
Like it couldn't survive the lack of proximity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it was definitely like, and I can see it now, like even in the Bay Area when I moved further away from them, like 20 minutes, not that far.
That is not that far.
Like a lessening of that friendship,
Okay.
unless I made an effort.
Okay. So
right?
it was
Like,
already kind of dissipating.
yeah, it was like, and so many of those friends were people I lived with for years. Like we lived together for 5, 6, 7 years. So we were together all the time in our house, hanging out, doing stuff together, and had cultivated this deep kind of relationship. But then you move further away and it's a whole new dynamic, right? Like, who are you? We don't, like, we're not thinking about you anymore.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Versus other people that you just like stay connected with no matter what. But I feel like Bay Area friends, I have both my husband and I feel some level of grief around it, because it's like, damn, we were friends with these people for like 15, for him, like 30 years.
Wow.
Just like, done.
That is serious. And I think it's important to understand and accept that there is a grieving process around friendship, right? Like you do grieve friendships that are lost, or, you know, just end badly, or just, you know, sort of dissolve and disappear and fizzle out.
And you don't know. I wish that these friendships, if I did something, I want to know about it, right? I want us to like clear the air, have a conversation with me. You got a problem, like let's fix it.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, do people
just like, psh, all right, well, I don't have to deal with that because she's not calling me anymore either.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind. And I think that a lot of people who are already just generally non-confrontational or don't, you know, enjoy conflict have a really hard time with that in friendships, right? I know a lot of people have a hard time saying what's on their mind to their friends. You know, I have really a group of 3 really close friends with whom I've been close since my late teens, and we have remained close even though literally now we all live in 4 different cities around the world, and we make a very real effort to make sure we get together at least once a year, if not twice a year, and now with our families. And it is family, you know what I mean? And if like those people, those friends of mine, we can have conflict. We can bring up things. We can share our frustrations. Some of us better than others, right? But sometimes, you know, even in friendships, there are friends who can't receive the truth, right? And I think that affects the friendship as well, because it's not always that you don't want to share the truth. It's like if the person is someone who just doesn't necessarily want to hear the truth or is very committed to their own story or whatever, I think that can be really damaging to a friendship too. So it's not always just one way, right? But the inability, or not the inability so much, but like for when people like feel uncomfortable telling their friends how they feel, like that's problematic, dude. That's the same damage that happens in a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I've only ever felt that in one relationship, that it was like my feelings were strong enough for me to express it. And it's someone that lives here locally who she was like kind of fundamental in us moving to Houston. And then once we moved here, she just like completely cut off the relationship. And I would just keep trying and trying and trying. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, why are you not making an effort? Like, you were so bent on us being here. Like, I'd love to see you more. And she's just like, yeah, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm like, okay, got it. No worries. And then I tried. So we had that conversation in September. By December, I had another conversation. I'm like, listen, I've tried for 4 months to get together with you, like multiple times. I don't know what your issue is, but just let me know. Like, if we have a problem, we can fix it. If you don't like me, you don't want to hang out, let me know. Like, I don't want to, whatever. And at this point, the ball is in your court. So if you don't ever contact me, we're done. And I straight up told her. And she did not contact me.
Are you serious?
And she rolls in the same circles. She is someone I trained in fertility.
Wow.
So, yeah. Like,
That's wild.
I see her literally every year, and I'm like, and she, like, the last time I saw her, last year, her and her best friend that I also trained, her best friend talked to me. They were literally standing together. This lady was talking to someone else, and I was talking to her. Not once did this woman
Like turn her body to
turn her, no, not once. Not even a, hey, how are you?
Wow. All right, so yeah, we just let that go.
Biatch. Peace the fuck out. Like,
Yeah, man. But that's not your people, you know what I mean? And that's okay. And I think, dude, like some of them are just for a season. I had a very, very, very close friend for 20 years. My best friend in New York, first female friend, girlfriend that I made in New York when I moved there, you know, not knowing pretty much anybody. I moved there very much on my own. I had a boyfriend who was born and raised in New York. He was a DJ, so it was good. It was a good connection. It was a good first boyfriend to have. He introduced me to a lot of people in the city, but she was the first friend that I had, and we were friends. I mean, for years. Like, you know, she knew my family. I knew her family. You know, we spent lots of holidays together, and just in the past, I would say 5 years, she had not had the same maybe. History of relationships that I had. So she was single for a lot longer. I had, you know, gotten married. I had had a kid, and she hadn't. And, you know, she had met somebody who I didn't really like very much, and I was honest about it. And she basically like kind of disappeared and cut me off. No, but she didn't just cut me off. She cut all of her friends off at this one particular stage in her life. And we just could never come back from that, because to me, I was like, dude, like, I understand that you're going through something. I was actually going through my divorce at the time. So I was going through something pretty significant and major. I lost my job. I was a single mother for the first time. And so, you know, I didn't have time to worry about her man drama. Like, my whole life just fell apart. You know what I mean? And when she couldn't show up for me, and I wasn't willing to show up for her because I just could not co-sign something that I didn't agree with. I couldn't lie to her, you know, about this guy. I just didn't put in the effort. It fractured the relationship, ends up the dude was not good news. That didn't end up working out. So she kind of came back looking for the friendships again, but her friendships had gotten displaced at that point, right? Like people weren't looking at her the same. And for me, I had gone through everything I'd gone through. I had at that point met Ty. I think I was like pregnant with 7 or having 7 around that time, where we're kind of reconnected. She had met someone new. She ended up having a kid, and we tried to kind of reconnect, and it just couldn't work. It just couldn't work. And then something very unfortunate happened, like an incident happened that was pretty unforgivable. And I was not willing to compromise my position on it. And she was not willing to listen to my position on it. And I was like, okay, well, this was like the universe telling me that relationship was already done. You almost pushed too hard on it. And now here's a clear sign that it's done. And if you're not listening, then like you're not going to like the next sign. So I was like, no, this sign is good. This sign is enough. And, and I didn't, because it ended like that, I think about her from time to time, but I am very at peace with that relationship having ended, understanding why it ended, and understanding that it needed to end almost. It needed to end. Like we had just grown to be 2 different people. And I could also see in hindsight with more clarity, as we feel in like relationships, right? Where the toxicity was and where the gaps were and how we filled each other's lives while we did and why, right? Yeah. And I think sometimes we meet people for those reasons, right? To fill those gaps, to kind of assume those roles. And sometimes it's for a short while and sometimes it's for a long while, but it doesn't always mean that it's like forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like the same with marriage. Like you have to keep putting energy into it or it's not going to last.
Yeah.
And friendships, I feel like, fall into that bucket. Like you don't have to put as much energy, but if you're not feeding that relationship, then it is, at some point, it is going to dissolve.
So what happens if you and your friends with whom you're close are like growing and evolving at different rates and speeds and in different areas? Like, for example, what if you have a change in your financial resources, for example? Either now you have a lot more than your friends or you have a lot less than your friends. Because I think we do tend to sort of, the same way we kind of partner, unless you're looking for somebody who's got a specific set of money or some specific set of things, because some of y'all out here doing that too. But, like, how does that work out, right? Because generally, friend groups, I don't know, because like when you're meeting new people, you can't be like, so what's your income bracket? Like, you know what I mean? How do you discern that in friendships? Or do you? Or like, how does that all work? Because what if you have a group of friends, for example, and you cannot do the things that they're doing?
Well,
or they can't do the things that you want to do. What happens?
I think the question is, do you want to? Right? Like I went out with a group of girls. I would not call them friends. I was meeting them for the first time through this like Facebook group or something, right? Like,
okay.
I was stepping way out of my comfort zone to meet up with these ladies. They were super young, but even the ones that were my age, they felt like their priorities were very different from me, in terms of like, they were out here popping bottles and doing that thing. And I was just like, yeah, I'm out. Like, I'm leaving right now. And they're like, oh, you don't have a ride. I'm like, I got a fucking Uber. Like, there is no level of, I need to be here right now, popping bottles with you ladies, that makes sense to me. And I will spend $90 on a fucking Uber to go
home
right now. So it is, I feel like I'm very clear about what I want to put money into and what I don't, and what I prioritize and what I don't. And if the people that I'm around are not into those things, or they're into things that I'm not into, like, that's just not going anywhere. But for people that you already consider friends, if they can't do the things that you want to do, or you can't do the things that they want to do, I don't know, does that come up that much? I feel like if you're friends for example, want to go to dinner and you want to go to this fancy place and they're looking at it like, damn, that's like not ready for 90 G's on a dinner. You know, like that could be a real concern for somebody. Then they would probably suggest an alternate, like, not feeling that place. How about this one? Like, does it matter that much? I'd be like, sure, okay, let's go to that one.
I guess. Right? I mean, I guess, I don't know.
What are things that friends would want to do or not do that?
I'm thinking of it like, what if it's not a one-off, right? Where it's like you have a group of friends, because one-off experiences I get, right? But if you're in a particular income bracket or you are living a particular lifestyle, it's your life. It's not just a one-off dinner, right? So if you're able to afford certain things and a certain quality of life or a certain standard of life, not quality necessarily, and you have a very close friend who doesn't or has made different choices and is perfectly content with their choices, but maybe, there's a concert or there's a bunch of series of things, or you want to do a girls trip and now you want to look at Airbnbs and you need to look at all of those different sort of things that collectively now are going to cost you much more because you're doing it on this standard, or this person's just used to this standard and and so it's not, it's not that the person doesn't necessarily understand maybe or isn't considerate of their friend, but it's like, how do you navigate that as friends?
I feel like in the past, I feel like I've had straight up conversations about it. Like a friend of mine in the Bay, we went on a trip together with some other friends of hers, and we had a conversation about like, okay, what's our budget? Like, how much can we spend for an Airbnb so that it works for everybody? Because the other mom is a single mom with 2 kids. I'm bringing my kid. She doesn't have kids. So she's like trying to figure out like, how does this make sense in a way that it fits for everyone and feels even for people, instead of like, damn, I just had to pay for 3 kids that are not mine. Right? So, yeah. So I feel like it's just a conversation of what's our budget? How much can we spend on this? And it doesn't even matter how much we have. I feel like we could have thousands of dollars and still like, yeah, I want to do this girls trip, but I want to not spend $2,000 on it.
Yeah, I think conversation and communication is like with everything, is important. I just don't know that a lot of people feel comfortable having those conversations. I do with my friends. Like even this summer, we were I had a very busy summer full of a lot of different things. And I was like, okay, this is a much more spend heavy summer than I had anticipated, because there's a lot of different components and my kids have to fly around and do all this stuff. So I was kind of looking at all the trips and I was like, well, I want to do all of it. So I'm going to have to do some of it a little bit differently than maybe if I wasn't doing all of it, right? And one of the things that we do every year, like I said, we're very intentional about doing girls trips and so on. And there was a bunch of us that were going to be in Toronto at the same time. We're like, okay, we're going to go to wine country and we're going to do like, 2 days away and whatever. And we always do stuff like that. And I was like, that's cool. I was like, okay, but this time I'm going to look for the Airbnb. We're going to stay within a budget. And everybody has shit going on, right? So everybody was kind of like, oh, that's a good idea. Like the first thought wasn't, okay, let's stay constrained. But because I said something, and usually no one's having that conversation, everyone was like, no, actually, that's really good for me too. And so I was like, we need to say these things more.
Yeah, I think we just need to have those conversations
more often. And, it's an interesting thing because, I think we meet different people in different phases and stages of our lives. And like I said, not everybody makes the same decisions that we do, right? And not everybody comes from the same life and world and has the same resources or the same access, and different people have different responsibilities. So I also think it's unfair to just presume what people want to do or not do with their money as friends. So I feel like that those conversations need to be had. You know what I mean? Like some people are paying for elderly parents. Some people are supporting people are like us in private school, or like, we're in a blended family. We've got 4 kids between the 2 of us. Like, and some people are like, okay, well, I've have, no kids and I've made different choices and I'm free and, whatever else. So yeah, I just think I don't hear a lot of people talking about that, or girlfriends talking about that. And I'm always just curious too, like how people find each other, right? Like how do friends or people, especially as we get older, how do we connect? And, you do see people who are, I do imagine, and I've never done this, nor I don't think I have any friends who do this, but there are people who do sort of extend themselves to match a lifestyle that
Keeping up with the Joneses.
with the Joneses, right? Within their friendship groups, right? Because the image is X and they're trying to keep up with the image of whatever that is, right? And I think that that's just such a unfortunate thing to like not have. Well, that's your own problem really, because you should be able to say something, but obviously coming from your own insecurity around things.
Right. And I think that sometimes people are insecure about it, or they do have kind of a hesitation of like, oh, I don't want to be the only one that is like thinking about it, or I don't want to be the one to say it, right? So
Yeah.
like you, for example, saying that to your friends was like a little bit of a relief because everyone's on the same page, but nobody wants to say
anything. And it's so wild because, simultaneously, I have a friend who just bought a $1.6 million house by herself. And she's like, no, I need a budget, right? So in your head, you're like, well, you out over here doing this thing. Right. And it looks like one thing and an assumption, but I know what it means to do that. I know what it means on the other side of that. So I was mindful of that too. And I'm like, I don't think you could be doing all these things. You know what I mean? And so I'm very grateful. And that's why I even, started thinking about this is like, I'm very grateful that I feel comfortable enough to have those conversations with my close friends. They're not, and interestingly, I had met somebody not that long ago here locally, and we were hanging out for the first time and we were going to meet up for a drink. And she's like, do you mind if we do happy hour? I'm on a budget. And I respected that so much. I even told Ty, I was like, that's so dope that she put it out there. She doesn't know me. It's not about judgment. We went to a beautiful place that had great $10 martinis. Like, you know what I mean? And it was perfect and it was wonderful. But I was so impressed by her ability to assert herself and advocate and stay within her boundaries. You know what I mean? And I think that that's such a bold thing that not a lot of people do, and a really impressive, just sort of way to take care of yourself, and still do the things that you want to do and still connect with people. And the people who are about that you're gonna find the right people by being real.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that there's going to be times when your friends are wanting to do things or saying that they're like want to go to this concert or whatever, and you're like, yeah, I'm not trying to spend $400 on a ticket.
For sure.
I'm good.
Exactly.
Like, thanks, but no thanks.
Exactly.
And that's okay too.
That's okay too.
I don't think that, hopefully, that doesn't make you less friends with them, assuming that that's not all they ever do.
Right.
Right? Like,
right.
It's not always going to be a $400 concert.
And if it's that, then honestly, I would have to take a look at like, what is our friendship then based on? Because if we're not doing that, then I'm hoping that we're doing something else that is still, kind of nurturing our friendship and helping us connect or keeping us connected. That might not be $400 concerts, because we're not doing really anything but having fun at the $400 concert anyway. We're not really,
That's not really connection for me anyway.
Exactly. Like, we're at the same place doing the same thing together. But yeah, how about stuff like, if you're out to dinner with lunch, say, or dinner, or whatever, with somebody who's new, and for example, they're not having a drink, right? And you want one. Would you still go ahead and do you? Do you ever feel influenced, like, or okay, I know you're vegan, so like this isn't probably not a a great question for you. I think you know where I'm going, but there are people that I have met who have adjusted what they eat, how they eat for the person that they're dining with. And I'm like, excuse me, what? Like,
Why?
if I want a cocktail, I am drinking a cocktail. I don't give a fuck if you're drinking lemon water. You know what I mean? It's not about you. I have met women who will adjust what they eat. Okay, that person is eating a salad. I should eat a salad. It would look crazy for me to order the pasta because
Or the steak or whatever. Yeah.
it's like, nah, dude, I'm hungry. I'm gonna eat what I want to eat.
No, I'm always
couch
ordering
that?
what I'm ordering.
Yeah, but the problem is the other person on the other side of you is like, oh shit, she vegan. I should probably get something healthy.
No, but I always tell people, like, if they look hesitant to order something non-vegan, I'm like, yo, do you? Like, you don't need to be on my diet.
That's so.
I'm completely capable of eating what I'm eating and not be tempted by your food.
Yeah, and not worry about you what you're doing. Yeah.
And like most of the time, I don't even mention it, right? Like, I will assume that if I'm going to a place, there's something on the menu that I can order. And like these friends that I just met, it's a whole group of girls, women, Indian women, and they're like, oh, why didn't you say anything that you're vegan? We would have like went to a vegan place. I'm like, no, it's cool. Like, it's good. Like, I don't need to control everybody's experience because I'm the vegan one.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I checked the menu. There was chips and guac. I'm good with chips and guac.
You're like, I'll figure it out.
We do something else, which they ended up like making vegan pupusas that were really good. But I would have never expected it, right? Like, I went there prepped. I was like, already ate a little something, so I'm not starving. I get there, I'm like, can you do anything vegan? And he's like, oh yeah, we can do this and we can do this and we can do that. I was like, oh wow, way more
Better.
options than I came in thinking. So, but they were like, oh, we wish we would have known. Like, we would have. I'm like, it's cool. I got 3 options.
It's so funny because people will do all the things to change everything for the one person. It's like, no, there's 6 of you who actually eat everything, and there's one of her. We're not taking anything away from you, but it's so interesting that people will be like, when I didn't eat, I was vegetarian for many, 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 many years. People will be like, oh, but like we can go. No, but no, I actually used to eat meat. I love that you eat meat. You can make your own choices. Say, wait, I'm making my own choices. We're good. And there's way more of y'all than me. So you're going to be very bored at the other restaurant. You're not going to enjoy it. In fact, the vegetarian food actually tastes better at the non-vegetarian restaurant. They probably put a little something in that I probably shouldn't be eating. But, you know, it's just the dynamic of how people interact with each other. And I think women in particular, sometimes there's a lot of intimidation. There's a lot of insecurity. Like, there's just so many factors at play, I think. And I think, yeah, with age, or maybe just with, you know, growth, not really with age, but with growth, you care less and less and less about that stuff. So I think you connect more and more with people who are actually aligned with you. And so you're not doing stupid shit like, you know, ordering a salad because they ordered a salad. But it exists.
Yeah, I guess women do that. And the thing I see more often than not is like, oh, are you ordering a drink? Because I'll get a drink if you get a drink. And I'm like, so do you want a drink? And I'm just not in the mood, so have your drink.
Oh my God. That shit kills me because I'm a drinker and I will drink 4 cocktails with no problem, but I am me and I know me. And that's the thing. It's like, people are like, are you okay? I'm like, dude, I'm so okay. Like, you never have to worry about me. Okay. Never, like never. And so and I think that level of confidence even sometimes can shake people a little bit. Like, I'm not going to ask you permission or validation. Like, I'm just going to continue being me over here, and I'll order another bourbon and another old fashioned. They're looking at me like, okay. And that has happened to me several times. And I'm like, I understand that I might not be, maybe this is not like womanly to you, or like I'm drinking too much, or like because I didn't have one cocktail and then I was like, no, I'm good, I'm driving. Like, I'm not that girl. It's not how I move in the world. That's just not how I move. And people who know me, it's never an extreme, right? So, but I move with that energy. And I think sometimes it's disruptive for other people because they are uncomfortable with it. And I'm like, but that's not a me problem. So I'm not going to amend to you. So I really would hope that you're not amending to me. And I have definitely been around people where I'll be like, no, I'll have another one. They'll be like, oh, okay, well then I'll have another one too. And I'm like, well, dude, if I wasn't
Don't we do it if you are capable of handling?
yeah, like I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe it's time for you to stop. Let's get her some water. But it's like, dude, if you wanted one, just get one. Like it shouldn't be okay just because somebody else made it okay. And that part, to me, it's like where do those boundaries lie? I remember years ago with a friend, my ex-husband said to me, she's not really your friend. And I said, why? Why do you say that? And he's like, she wants to have a good time with you, but she doesn't know where her boundary is and where your boundary is. And she's not looking out for your, like, sort of your wellness, right? Your overall well-being, because she doesn't know what her own cutoff is. And because you are willing to ride with her, she's also not willing to tell you where your cutoff is. And because mine was a lot further than hers, you know what I mean? And and it always stuck with me because I'm like, sometimes when you're, and this is in our, early 20s, you're caught up in the fun of friendship. You don't really realize that some people really aren't they're in it for the good time. They're in it for that, sort of tit for tat, like you do it, so I do it, for that validation, for that, okay, I'm not the only one. And that can become really unhealthy and toxic too. So it's like really important to also understand or see where people are kind of plugging in to have your back in those exchanges as well. Because sometimes people are in it just for their own benefit. There's a lot of opportunists out here.
Most definitely. Most definitely. I think it's what I'm walking away with from this is just like the understanding our own boundaries and who we are as people. And the more that we're able to stand in our own truth, which is always like, I feel like that's just me in general. Like, if you don't resonate, I'm out. Like, I do not need to be here. See ya.
There's no space for that.
No, like, life is just too short, and I have no problem just being like, see ya. Mm-hmm. Nice knowing you. Like, we just not vibing. Like,
peace out. You're gonna be better off too. You don't have to worry about me either. It takes a long time to get there though, because I think so many people are people pleasers. And again, culturally, I think for us South Asians, especially, we are raised, to really worry about what other people think. So a lot of it, comes into not just our friendships, but our interactions with other people. So it's, to be able to remove yourself past that point where you do care what other people think. And it's not about being disrespectful or unkind in any way. It's about having boundaries and standards for what is okay and safe for you and feels okay for you. And dude, like, your friendships should be nurturing and nourishing, and they should give you something. Like, there should be reciprocity in the exchange of energy. Like, there should be, like,
well, I'm sorry. I didn't ask you what you find, like, how do you feel like when you meet someone? Is there something that tells you that you want to be friends with them?
I think it's my intuition and their energy. Yeah. I know pretty immediately too. And I'm open to all of it, but I can pretty much hone in pretty immediately. I was at a brunch the other day, last week, and it was probably about, I would say about 12, 15 women. And I knew immediately who I wanted to talk to. And I knew immediately whose energy was vibrating with mine and whose wasn't. And I could kind of tell who wanted to stay. It was mostly Latina women. And I could tell who wanted to stay within their little Latina group and who was willing to just be open and be there to meet everybody and to, like, and I speak Spanish. And so that it wasn't a language thing with the Latina women. It was just it was just a different, they had a different desire. And you know what? It was more about their comfort. That's cool. You want to stay comfortable in your bubble, and that's okay. I'm not gonna, for me, people who want to stay comfortable in their bubble, that's not my people. You know what I mean? And so I actually met some really awesome other women at this thing, and I kind of knew immediately. In fact, it was the 3 women I sat beside. And I kind of knew that, and I kind of like gravitated and went sat there because I could feel that their energy was different. So I know pretty immediately, but um yes, even, like within other groups, when you're being introduced to various people, I usually know pretty immediately who I'm going to end up either staying in contact with or not. And if it's somebody that I feel that way about, I will also be intentional about making that connection, getting their number, setting up some kind of like coffee or whatever date or whatever, some kind of exchange of information. Like I'm good about picking up on that. And then, like you said earlier, right? Like I'll do the dating. And if the dating for some reason doesn't work out, then okay, cool. Maybe I was wrong, but usually I'm not. Usually I'm not. But I also am like, like you were saying earlier, I'm also very good at slotting into people into particular like places, like of kind of understanding what their role is in sort of the bigger scheme. I am not one that doesn't believe that I can't make deep friendships again, but I have deep friendships that have so much history, and they still have so much um there's just still so much there that I don't need those slots to get filled, right? And so yeah, if there was somebody who could also occupy that, cool. I'm not opposed to it. But I'm meeting different people for different needs now.
So I have a question. I'm curious about, I know you said the closest friends that you have, you guys also hang out with your families. Do the men also feel like they can get along and they're like all family with each other? Or do they just just they're there because you're like, hey, this is what we're doing?
That's a difficult question to answer because we're all either divorced or repartnered and have gone through, except for one of my friends who has been with her partner for many years. We've all been through something where we've shifted partners, and we don't all live in the same place. So some of the times that we're hanging out, it's not with all the men. Sometimes it's with the kids and 1 or 2 of the men. Sometimes it's like, so one of my friends just has a new partner now, so he hasn't really been around any of the other. So our situation is not a cut and dry one. And, I do love having like a husband, wife, couple friends to hang out with. Like that is a wonderful thing. We don't have a ton of those. We've never, and we're relatively, I mean, we're not new, but we're new here. And when we were in New York, we were kind of new there, and now we're here, and now we're new here. So like, we don't have a ton of that. We have more of that here than we did in New York, in fact. Um, but yeah, like I think that the husbands get along. I don't think that they'll ever have the same vibration that we do, but we have 30 years of friendship. Like that's just not gonna, I don't think that's ever gonna happen. But I will say all of their different partners have also always, like with even if it was my ex-husband, because once upon a time it was my ex-husband and now currently with Ty, he's always gotten along with whomever their partners are. So that has made it so much easier. I do have a friend, I have a set of friends too, that I grew up with, and not grew up with so much, but they were like in my teens and early 20s before I left Toronto, that we see each other every single time. Our families also do stuff together, but they're more like that family that you're friends with because they're family, or you're still connected to because they're family. There's not really a depth of connection there. There's not really like, there's a lot of history, and because of the history, we're still connected. But day-to-day stuff that's going on in my life, they don't know any of the stuff, right? So, it's like that kind of family connection is there, but like the real connection isn't. So, it's like different with different people. But I love it when, we're able to have friends as a couple. It's like the best thing. It is really, really good. Hard to find.
It's so hard to find.
Yeah.
Because you and your partner are different people, and then your friend and her partner are different people, and to like find the right chemistry between 4 people is just that much harder.
Yeah.
And then if you put the kids into the mix, it's over.
Yes.
How are all of those things gonna align?
Yeah, because like, what if your kids don't get along, right? Because that can, we had a situation where I had somebody whose child didn't, and my child didn't get along, and they had some friction, and she said that my kid said something which I still to this day don't believe he said, and I know my kid, I know the things he'll say. Yeah, and I had already seen some of the behavior from the other person's kid that my kid was reporting, so I couldn't even like shut him down really, because I was like, I actually saw that person doing all these things that you're saying that they did, so I actually believe you because I watched it with my own eyes. And so, that definitely affected the friendship, because like, I'm not gonna, I apologized on behalf of if there was a misunderstanding, blah, blah, blah. But it's also like, I'm not invested enough here. Again, kind of going back to what we were talking about at the beginning. It's like, I'm not invested enough to, in this. Did I reach out a couple more times? Just her and I? Because it was like, we don't have to have a relationship with the kids. Yes. Was it reciprocated? No. And so, cool.
Yeah.
All good. Like zero effect. It's like, all right, lesson learned, keep it moving.
I like how unaffected that you are.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have the same like non-effect. And of course it varies from person to person. But there's just some friendships that when they don't pan out, I'm just like heartbroken over it.
Really?
Yeah, like it's so weird to me. But I
like pan out in what way? What do you mean pan out?
Like if I was the same person, and I don't know this person, so it's hard to tell. But let's suppose I was someone I really, really, really and our kids didn't get along, and that tore us apart. I think I would be heartbroken over it.
Really?
Yeah.
Nah, dude. Like you, like
I'm like so affected. I feel like.
Well, it's just an expression of emotion, right? I think I process things in a way that, for me, I can just keep moving forward, because I don't have the space for that to block me. You know what I mean?
Of course, like it's not blocking me in any way, or it's not keeping me from doing other things.
But you would think about it. You'd be
sad. It just like
keeps
going in the back of my mind. Like, damn, I thought we were close. Like, I really liked her.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, my thought process behind it is like, it's unfortunate, it's sad, it's too bad, is really what my thought was. Like, that's too bad. But also, I followed up after. So I also knew that I did whatever I could, because I did not say anything about it. I felt like I handled it pretty decently in the moment. It was in front of other people, and I thought that I handled it okay. So like, I wasn't disappointed in my own management of the situation. So that's also, I think, a reason why I was not that affected, because because there have been times where I'm like, I could have said this, or I could have done that better. I should have handled it this way, right? We all make mistakes, and we all could have shown up differently or better. In hindsight, we're like, oh, or I could see why they might be upset, whatever it was. In that situation, I really didn't feel that way. And so, the one with my friend who, 20-year-long friendship, I was really sad. I was really sad. But I was going through a divorce and a loss of a job. And so I was kind of mourning it all at the same time. And it actually didn't strike me till later that I also was carrying the weight of mourning a friendship. Like, I didn't give it its necessary space and its necessary attention, because the other side of things was much more acute, and it was my day to day, right? And I had a kid to take care of. But when I was working with my therapist and my life coach after that, I did process through it, because I was like, I didn't process this at the time that it happened. And we were rekindling, like I said, the friendship sort of. And then when the thing happened, that was really sort of the breaking point. I, again, I had already started processing, or I had gone through quite a bit of the processing through it. And I realized that it had become a friendship out of convenience. And it had been a friendship for which I was very proud of the way that I had shown up. And I had invited her into my family, into my world for many, many years in a way that actually affected my marriage, because she was always around. And I was like, I compromised and sacrificed a lot. So again, I could really understand it. And I was like, okay, I'm sad that it's over, but I also understand why it's over. And I also recognize that I don't want a person who doesn't believe me when I say that something happened, or, cannot see who I am and how I am because of a man, because like that doesn't connect for me. I'm sorry. 20 years over somebody new, like it just doesn't
Bros
connect.
over hoes. What's
Yeah.
the reverse of that?
Always.
Okay.
Should always be your hoe first.
No, there's another one. What's the flip of it?
Oh,
Ladies before.
I don't know that one.
Let us know. There's a saying for that.
All right, man. Well, friendships are complicated. There's so many layers. There's just so many ways to do them. There's when you're young, there's when you're old, there's when you're new somewhere, there's when you're a mom, when you're partners in a couple, like all the different things.
So many layers of it.
to have some.
Like, I feel blessed to have some.
Given how hard it is.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. All
Great
right.
gratitude for that.
We'll see you guys next time.
Love it.
Next time.
See ya.
Bye-bye.